peace, and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is February the 13th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1441 on the ancient sun calendar, 1443 on the civil Islamic calendar, and 2022 on the Greco-Roman calendar, and 5782 on the Jewish calendar, the ancient Jewish calendar. All rise and stand. This is a sovereign, living, ancient Al-Moroccan, Article 3 court action. We are the sovereign, living justices in Capita Nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. Our free-chosen sovereign appellations are also in Capita Nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. We are the original indigenous sovereign ancient Al-Moroccan, Moorish American descendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites and Elites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural, divine, ancient empire state of Morocco, and the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government, the Universal Moorish American Consulate, and the Article 3 Moorish American Consular Court. We are peace, we are one nation, we are one state, we are one empire, and we are one God. We hereby exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, not post time. I want us to discuss in brief today the difference between public and private, and then as with everything that has to do with us, there's a third element of that is not really put with public and private that we need to talk about, because it is the third. There is another aspect of public and private that we need to know about because of our status as the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. So let's take a look at those three terms really quickly. So there's public, and then there's private, and then there is the third aspect of that, which is sovereign. Okay, and I've not heard anyone yet talking about that third aspect being part of public and private, and it's not really part, it's actually the overarching energy of public and private, especially as we move forth in commerce. We can take a look at what the ones that were doing business as citizens, we can take a look at what they've done where public and private is concerned and take some notes from that and then make it so that it's not corrupt. But as I've been moving through the study on this, it is clear to me that, for example, the things that we're doing with regard to the systemic changes that we've been talking about making it so that the banking system is uncorrupted and uncorrupting where property is concerned and uncorrupting things, and the way to uncorrupt things, that we have taken is to lien the corrupt by court action, and then create sovereign title and all of those things. Terminate all corporate contracts, because all corporate contracts with the United States Corporation Company in its dead form, because those contracts made it so that it appeared that corpses and corporations were over us and telling us what to do and governing us, when in reality we tell, they are subject to the Moors. So as we're moving forth in commerce, it became clear to me, even clearer, what the all lowercase letters is all about as well. Okay, as I've been looking at the opening up of the estate and how that and what that looks like. Okay, because believe it or not, we've not really seen what it looks like to have full access to our vast estate, but we're about to see it. In fact, we didn't see it in this dimension, but we've seen it in the spirit realm. So, where public is concerned, all lowercase letters is things that are public. Where public is concerned, there is no capitulation when we speak as one. Public means we're all together. Public is for everyone, whether nationals or subjects. That means the public is the subjects and the nationals complementing each other, okay? And I'm careful with the terms that I use because, again, the public is when everyone is in their proper status. That's why, you know, in the media, the moorishe media, the land has always been referred to as the reepublic, or the public again. And that has to do with, again, the citizens and the sovereigns working together. But we could not do that, and we saw this repeatedly. We could not work with anyone outside of our proper status and as a body politic, as the whole, the all. And now that we can see what the all looks like. The United States Corporation Company gave us a good example of that because our prophet said that they were going to be left here long enough to teach us how to govern. So when you went into a public place, they didn't say, okay, all the nationals over here and all the citizens over here, even though those statuses were there. They didn't say that. And I used to wonder why not? Why didn't they make that distinction? But that distinction was not made because the public, in the public, that's where they get that all men are created equal. When they say all men, they're talking about the public. So let's just say, for example, everyone, you know, say 50 people go into a bank. Well, when those 50 people go into a bank to open up a bank account, there are some who open it up as a trust and others who open it up as, you know, with a name, so to speak, or an instrument, a conveyance instrument, such as a name or an appellation. And when they do, even though the accounts have been opened up in different ways, they still have the same obligation and the same status. Same status with a couple of different caveats, but still pretty much the same. And by the same, what I mean is one is going to be taxed and the other one is going to be taxed also, unless there's some stipulation that says otherwise. So where public and private are concerned, the third aspect of that is sovereign. And I want to make that clear because it's going to be important as we move forward, just what we're doing and what that looks like. Okay? Because I do hear and see more who say that they are going, you know, that they have a public side and a private side, and I understand the what their intention is. And so we want to just put a little emphasis on what that looks like, okay? So I went to Black's Law Dictionary and I pulled up the word public, and it again says the whole body politic or the aggregate of the citizens of a state, district, or municipality. The word state, whenever I see the word state, or whenever we see the word state, then we have to really pay close attention to what it is saying. okay? In this definition, it says the inhabitants of a state, county, or community. And it says or right here. Why does it say or? Because either you are a state, a county, or a community. Now, only when a sovereign state is put forth can they be a county and a community also. And when the United States Corporation Company was claiming sovereign status, okay, or acting like sovereign, then they will use all of these matters. They mattered. But not really, because again, they were still corporations. But the same thing takes place now that we are the state. It says here, in one sense, everybody. And accordingly, the body of the people at large. That's important, because the public, with the public, it doesn't matter what your nationality or your status is. You're a part of the whole. It's everybody, regardless of status. And that is what is meant by all men are created equal. But we know that in our nations and states and the sovereignty of the original indigenous people, that there is equity, and equity is different, is expressed differently from equality. Okay? The difference being equity is each according to his measure or his status. That's why our courts can only be courts of equity. When I say only, I mean our courts are not the inferior corporate situation. Our courts are courts of law and equity, and we can operate our courts of law and equity as such, as instead of it being municipal corporations, etc., under the United States Corporation Company. Okay. So it says here, the community at large, without reference to the geographical limits of any corporation like a city, town, or county. It's the people. The public is the people. The public is what the Constitution was talking about. It could have easily said, we the public. It very easily could have said that. We the public. The public is the Moors, the nationals, the heirs, and the subjects, the Moorish subjects ipso jure, or the citizens. Why is that important? It's important because as we get into commerce in the manner that we're moving, our commerce has to be universal commerce. It has to be for the public. So we have to make sure that we have a good understanding of that and see what it looks like. What does it look like? Doing something for the public means that, for example, if you have a business and your business, not a business, but a service that you provide, and that service is feeding the homeless, you're not going to say, okay, all the national homeless people over here and all the citizen homeless people here. You're just going to feed everyone, right? That means that the way you organize that, depending on what services you're offering, it has to be tailored so that whether they're a Moorish American national or a citizen, that they get the same treatment for those types of services, okay? And that explains why the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, you can see photos of him with what is the banner of amity and commerce, okay, and then our Moorish flag. He was holding both of them, saying it has to be the public. Even though they're separate in terms of status, when it comes to public services that we as the government put forth, those public services have to be for everyone. What does that mean? It's great news for us because it is only by way of public services that everything is prepaid. That's the only way. All public services are prepaid. And so and this is another point to bring this up is that Morris has been talking about domiciles and utilities and, conveyances and those things. They are prepaid when they're properly recorded as public property, and when I say public property, it means that it cannot be out of the possession of the people, because the only other possession that was previously taking place is private corporate possession, whereas all of the protections come in the form of that which is public. The protection is with the people. And that is how we have been moving throughout all that we are doing. Our ancestors are so wise because they were having us move in the public, which is in all lowercase letters, this whole time, so that, because as you know, when corporations incorporate, they put that in capitis diminutio minima and then the in capitis diminutio maxima. Okay? When something is incorporated, it is capitalized. That means it's private, because the United States Corporation Company was issuing private commercial paper or private military script. That's what Federal Reserve debt notes were. So, again, when you're talking public, you're talking everyone, and you're still talking state or status. It's the status of everyone together. The status of everyone together means that no privateers can come through and start picking up domiciles and conveyances and booting the public out. That's why public lands, or what we've seen as public lands while we were in this sleeping, learning phase that we are out of now, public lands, no one would come and say, okay, the public can't use this. Only me and my family can use it. Not everyone. No one could do that. Even though some privateers, because we were not standing, they came and said, okay, well, we'll just govern this while the Moors are asleep. And if that means that Moors don't get to use it half the time, oh, well, maybe they'll wake up and start governing, which we've done and continue to do. So, and when I say we, I mean all Moors. So it says here, in another sense, the word does not mean all the people, nor most of the people, nor very many of the people of a place, but so many of them as contra distinguishes them from a few. What does that mean? That means that there can be a remnant that is known, that is moving as the public and getting things done in a public manner in preparation for everyone else to come. And that is what we've been doing. When we take votes on our calls, we're still saying this, we're taking these votes in the favor of all Moors. And with Moors come Moorish subjects. So this is, you know, when people are talking about public and private, there's a whole other perspective there that has to be considered so that we know exactly what we're really saying when we say public and private. Because there's a sovereign perspective there that has to be added that is actually going to change the dynamic of public and private somewhat. It says, accordingly, it has been defined or employed as meaning the inhabitants of a particular place. All the inhabitants of a particular place, the people of the neighborhood. It says also part of the inhabitants of a community. So, again, the public is the people at large. It's everyone. And here's the thing about the public that is important to remember, because I've had some more ask about when we say this is for all Moors. When we say this is for all Moors, that is not a takeover comment. It's not a takeover comment, because you can't take over sovereigns. Anybody smart knows you can't do that. You can't even tell sovereigns what to do. You can make suggestions, you can point to the law, which is what we do. But when we say all Moors, that means all Moors and all subjects. So we're still saying the public, because the subjects are subject to the board. So as we've been moving forward in all the videos we've done in the past, when we do a court action and we say this is in the favor of all Moors, it means the public. It means everyone. And that automatically makes everything prepaid. Okay? If someone says that a building is public, but they put guards on the door and say certain ones can't come in here, if the certain ones that they're talking about are not a danger to the public, then that's unacceptable. And it should be unacceptable to the public. Okay? So we're moving forward in this manner, in a public manner. When we put things in blue in all lowercase letters, that's the public. When we put it in red, that means it's coming from the sovereign and the sovereign state. Not that the blue is not coming from the sovereign state, because it is too. Any of those, in capitis, diminution, minimum, medium, maxima, blue, red, white, purple, all of that. That's all. When we speak by affidavit, and it's coming from us still anyway. But there's some protections in that whole public piece, because there's those same protections where public and state are concerned are very similar. Very similar. The difference between the public and the state is that the state protects the public. So state documents, when we talk about the Empire State of Morocco and we are making, the movement that we're making, and we say all Moors, then we're pointing to the public, saying this is being done for the public, for everyone on our land. And that's what people expect when they're on our land anyway, is they don't have any protection but the Moors. So now let's go a little further with the word private, because the word private is I'm seeing some things about the word private that tells me that to a certain degree, and this is just what I'm seeing in the word. From what I'm seeing with the word private, we're never private, just based on the definition of the word. The sovereigns who are governing the vast estate are never private. And then when I look at what has transpired with the corporation, where even when people thought things were private, like emails and phone calls and them at their house and all of that, that it wasn't private, and that whenever that door got ready to be kicked in, it was kicked in. That means somebody somewhere ain't private. But I see where that's coming from now. In that, you know, Moors, let's just look at the definition of private so that we can expand some more on what that is. Private, a secret message, private intimation, personal interest, privacy. Number 3 says retirement. Number 4 says in the United States Armed Forces, the lowest rank of enlisted man. In the Army, there are 2 ranks of private, comprising the 6th and 7th grades of enlisted man. In the Marine Corps and Air Force, it is the 7th or lowest grade. And number 5 and number 6 and number 7, those right there, I'm just looking, thinking we have never been that and never will be. Number 5 says an ordinary citizen. Never been that. We've never been that. 1 not invested with a public office. That means 1 who's not governing, and that doesn't exist for more. We're always governing. Always governing. And number 6 says private means the genitals. And underneath that it says in private means secretly, not openly or publicly. And then I mentioned the word privateers. That privateers are people who go around making things, trying to make things private, trying to claim things. Privateer, a ship or vessel of war, owned and equipped by 1 or more private persons and licensed by a government to seize or plunder the ships of an enemy in war. And we're not at war, we're at peace. And our enemies don't own any ships. Ships all belong to us. It says a ship carrying letters of marque and reprisal. A ship carrying letters means that the ship is claiming its own capitalism, and that does not exist when you are a part of a state or stateless. When you're stateless, you still don't own capitalism, the capitalism that is used to violate you. We've proven that by every time someone goes into one of those private corporate courts, because that's what it is, or what it was. When you go into a private corporate court, they capitalize you. And you think they capitalize what's on the paper, and you think they're talking about you when they're not. Because you don't exist on paper, you exist in the living flesh. And even more so in the spirit. A commander or crew member of a privateer. So they're talking about the sea and what's going on out there at sea. And that's when people are at war. Now, it says private first class in the United States Armed Forces, a rank of enlisted man just below a corporal. Just below a corporal. A corporal is another word for corporation. So when citizens are doing the public-private thing, the public just means they have a job on our land. That's all public is they're all public servants. And they serve everyone, not just citizens and not just the heirs. They serve everyone coming in. And then just below a corporal, if that corporal is a dead corporal, and you're claiming a private status under a dead corporal, which is the United States Corporation Company previously, the one that was liened, then where does that, I mean, that doesn't really leave anything there. It doesn't leave anything. And then private as an adjective. Now that was private as a noun. Private as an adjective, privitas, privitus, privitus. That's the Latin, it's privitus. Belonging to oneself, not public or pertaining to the state. Uh-oh. Not public or pertaining to the state. We're always the state. I don't care if we're asleep. We're still the sovereign state. It says from prevere, to separate. Are we ever separated? Are we ever deprived? Are we ever separate? Never. And that is why the word private has been, I've been looking at it going, that does not apply to us. It does not apply to us. At least, you know, it applies to whoever says it applies to them. But from our perspective, that doesn't even apply. We're a part of the public, and when we're not serving the public, which we always are, but let's say we're at our domicile and we're relaxing, kick back, or we're on vacation with our heirs and our kin, then we're sovereign. We're in our sovereign status. So we go up above the corporal when and then otherwise we're serving in the public or receiving services. Okay. And when I say again serving private, it says here that term does not, it just doesn't seem suitable. And again, I'm just looking at it from this perspective and from what we do. We're never unconnected with others. It says here, private of belonging to or concerning a particular person or group of persons, not common or general, as private property, not open to, intended for, or controlled by the public, as a private school. Well, sovereign for us means that no one controls us. Not holding public office. We are the office, period. So that's still sovereign or public. Away from public view, secluded as a private dining room. Not known to the public, secret, confidential, as one's private opinion. Number 6, unconnected with others, being by oneself, solitary. But again, you know, each more has their own, you know, of course, their feelings about that. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of definition and etymology and connotative and denotative. Number 7 says something that is a good thing about private. It says participating in knowledge or privy. Okay. Are we participating in knowledge or are we the knowledge? Because we're really actually creating and generating. But, you know, again, number 8 says designating a common soldier or one not an officer or non-commissioned officer. Well, we're the only officers there are. There are no other officers besides the heirs. Everyone else is those in the corporate status who've been doing things, doing business as police officers and things like that. They're custodians when the Moors show up, and we're here. That's why we don't call them officers. Officer of what? Not the Moors. Not like that. No, we don't have officers. We are the office, and we are the officers. So it says here, private act or statute, a statute which operates on an individual or company only, opposed to a general. Okay, and general, when you look at that word, they're telling you there, by using the word general, that is higher ranking than a private. So either you're in the private or you're a general. Militarily, those are military terms. Public is general. Private is the lowest ranking in the military. That's not a coincidence that those terms are used. When we're all together and doing things publicly, just like all of our documents, there is an energy that is added to our documents when we make them public. That says someone, it holds all others to obligation. You know, in particular, those that were unlawfully occupying, it held them to a particular status where they had to actually rebut it or sit down and stop pretending. So there's something to be said about public. So that has been our the way that we move in terms of all that we're doing is everything that we're doing, putting it in all lowercase letters, that means that we're saying this is everyone, especially the ones who don't know what's going on in terms of the sleeping moors. And there are some citizens that are still trying to wake up, some subjects trying to wake up, realizing that, wait a minute, I'm not who my parents told me I was either, thinking that the Moors were going to just stay asleep forever, which is, it was impossible. It's inevitable it's always been inevitable for us to wake up. You know, so we have been moving forward, and the things that we're doing, the demonstrations that we're doing, we are doing them with public and state and government and nation and the people first. Always first. So when you're talking about trust documents, the public trust, when you're talking about seek ye first the empire, then you're talking public first. Then the sovereign in proprio solo. The sovereign in proprio solo, as opposed to private. Now, I'm not knocking anybody that uses the word private. You can use the word private if you want to use the word private, because no one can tell sovereigns what to do. But what I'm saying is that as we move forth in all that we're doing, these precepts have to be in place in our programming and in our minds as we deprogram ourselves and then reprogram ourselves back to our ancient foremothers and forefathers. We have to keep in mind that everything that we do has to be for everyone, and that is where the banner of amity and commerce and our flags go, you know, start being in the same place. And when I say in the same place, I don't mean at the same level. I mean in their proper place. You know, so, and then we, as we're accessing the vast estate, the custodians are waiting there at those portals and ports that belong to us for us to use the magic word to gain access. So when you're talking about trusts and conveyances, it's going to be the exact opposite of what we were programmed to believe and to think. What do I mean by that? And I said this all along, knowing in my spirit that it had to be this way, but when we're putting property in trust, we're putting the property in the trust of the public or the people. For example, this domicile is actually the Moorish American consulate. It has gone from being something in my sleep that I acquired in my sleep, now to being in the trust of the public or the people. That way it can never belong to a corporation and some privateers who can just come in and throw people out and throw the public out and put their private mother-in-law in. That's not, can't happen. Cannot happen. Because even if we decided, okay, we're going to go someplace else, the domicile is titled to the people. It's titled to the people. It's in the big trust of the people. And we have vested our energy, our full faith and credit and all of that. We vested that in the people. And again, that's people who assent to that. But for those who are saying, you know, they may not want to be a part of whatever someone is doing out there, or if they say, oh, I don't want to be a part of what, you know, Empress so-and-so is doing, well, then you need to put state principles in place for you and those with you so that you're not left looking stateless on paper, because the paper is what they look at first. Then they start going out and finding things that property and people, you know, that's when they start going out looking for, okay, we see something here that's not properly claimed. It's abandoned by the state, and we need to collect it up. You know, of course, again, for those who either may not know or who've not done the study yet on statehood, we've done the study on statehood, and, you know, on the public record, everyone is a part of our state unless and until they, you know what I'm saying, decide otherwise. And deciding otherwise competently means you have to put something in its place that is competent and proper. That's all that means. Because that's the only way we were able to do statehood, is we had to rebut the United States Corporation Company properly, or else they were going to. That's why where you see Moors who keep saying they're Moors, they got these documents in their hands and they still get snatched up out of whatever, a domicile or a conveyance. It's because the state, they've not properly stated themselves. That's why that word is used like that. You must properly state yourself. You can't be stateless. You have to have the part and parcel for your sovereign state. And that is, first comes from the heart and the mouth, and then it comes on paper in terms of the state. And with state, when you look up state, you will see in brackets and in parentheses, estate or etat, which is the French. Estat is state in French, or estate. That's where that word comes from. That is the derivative thereof. And state is state of mind also. The state of mind must always be competent when speaking about connections, you know. So I just wanted to bring that forth today because it's so important where we're going that we move in that direction together. And the collective consciousness is in full swing. So everything that we're saying and doing, whenever we talk to Moors on the phone, they're saying and thinking the same thing. And then we start talking and comparing notes, and the ancestors have given all of us the same information at the same time, just from different perspectives, you know, which I think is beautiful. So are there any questions about public and private and sovereign and statehood and putting things on the public record, or any comments or wisdom? Islam mobility.
How you doing? Okay. On my job.
There's a radio in the background or something. Can you turn the radio down a little bit?
Well, the student is driving. So, can you hear me now?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, the student is driving. He has control over that when he drives. But I had another student who began to talk the black and white argument in my truck, and I told him that I didn't do that. If you want to know the truth, I can explain it to you. So I began to talk about the Moors, and I tried to get him to watch a few videos, talked about you, who you were, Ty, the House of Weird Awakened Minds. He told me that wasn't evidence. So he went from a 0 to an 8, decided to get off the truck in New Mexico. They asked me to go back. I was about 5 hours away from him. They asked me to go back and get him. Went back to get him. He was still angry. I think he was angry about other things as well. So we crossed into another state, and he decided to get off at a truck stop, and I just went on about my business. When I got back to the terminal, they pulled me in, and they asked me what happened. And he said that the student had said that I called him ignorant. And I said to them, the management, I said, no, I said ignorance of the law is no excuse. That's what. So he took it like I was calling him ignorant. Then he said, well, I heard that the Moorish American subject came up. And I said, yes, it did. And he said, do you talk to your students a lot about that? And I said, no, not at all, really. I only talk to those who can handle the conversation. And when I see that they can't, because a lot of times I'll be in the truck and I won't talk to them. I'll just be listening to my videos or whatever. They said, how long you been a Moor? And I said, I declared Moor about 2 years. And I said, do you want me to explain? He said, no, I know who they are, and I know who you are. And I gotta go bring my dog to the vet. I just thought that was a funny exit line. You know what I mean? And again, I've been sending like stuff to people's email. I put a whole lot of stuff on Facebook, and I got a response from Janet yelling in blue saying she'll get back to me. A lot of that the email wasn't sent for improper email designation, I guess, for lack of a better word. But that's what I could do behind the scenes on the truck. But I listened to Mark Christopher. Remember you had that video on how they said creditor and debt? Okay, I listened to him a lot, and I listened to David Wayne Miller. They never say Moors. They never. There's always something missing, but they will never say Moors. How come?
You know, it's because there's a status there. They can only tell one side of the story. We have to tell our side of the story. They can't tell it. They can't tell it. We have to tell it. And we're speaking now, so I've actually heard one of them talk about the Moors. I've heard Mark talk about the Moors. He knows about the Moors, and he even said in a couple of his videos that we're the possessors and the inheritors at America. So,
and then I heard you say. Then I heard you say the live life claim. That's what he says all the time. So, and he focuses people. Yeah, that's what he says all the time. And he focuses people towards his website. So I went snooping around there. You got to pay money to deal with him.
Well, you know, I'll say this about that, and I don't want to single him out, and I don't want because I don't want, you know, people have to learn on their own about what they're doing and all of that. I will say this. Those processes that are put forth by those who are not the Moors, in the way that we're the Moors, we're the original indigenous Moors, those processes that are put forth they're taking ways around naturalization. So the process will have a grain of truth in it, or some truth in it, and I'm just saying processes in general, when they're coming from citizens and subjects, those processes in general, they have a basis. The basis of the process is they don't want to be a part of the United States corporation company. Well, the problem that they have is that unless you naturalize and proclaim your status as a subject or a citizen where Moors are concerned, then it's either that or you're stateless still, no matter how many hoops you jump through. But we as the Moors had a responsibility and have a responsibility to stand and be ourselves. So the responsibility is still with the gods, the Moors. We're responsible for the whole universe. So we might as well just get used to that and go ahead and continue taking our rightful place and testing up into our, you know, the access that we are, that we know is ours. So those processes gave them some relief while we were asleep. But now everyone must get under their own vine and fig tree. And that vine and fig tree happens to be the same tree for everybody. It's just that some are on this side and some are on the other side, but it's still the same tree. One mother hath given us suck. One mother. Not given us birth, but given us suck. That being sustenance, food, taken care of. So, you know,
Thank you, Islam.
Yeah, Islam. I'm not mad at the work that they're doing, that everyone, you know, the citizens, in fact, that stuff needed to be done so we could look at it and then make it uncorrupted. You know, so we're grateful for all the work that everybody is doing, that the public is doing. All in service to the Moors, by the way, because the estate is what we share with the public while being a part of the public. So, yeah. That information with regards to the public and all of that, as the ancestors are revealing that even further and more in depth, it really is, it answers an energy that I asked the ancestors about a while ago. I asked them about when I realized who we were, and I realized how powerful we really, really are. I said, well, ancestors, I know you all want us to be humble, and I know you all want us to treat everybody well and in all of that. And so I asked the ancestors to reconcile that for me in terms of us being the gods of everything and having everything and being the heirs to everything, and humility and humbleness, because I know that ego energy is, when it's not in its rightful place, it is a destroyer. It's destructive. But when it's in its rightful place, which is generally just with other people, it doesn't have to be with us. It can go and be with other people who need it. But there are some people who cannot free themselves without that energy coming and telling them that they're worth it. And then when they seek the freedom, instead of languishing in a bad situation, that's where ego comes in at. Is helping people who have absolutely no confidence at all to raise their expectation of themselves so that they can get the energy to free themselves. So I asked the ancestors to send that to them so they can use it so that we will not be encumbered by energies that are not helpful. So
Islam.
Yeah.
Islam. When he said that he needed to take his dog to the vet, he kind of wrenched his hands, wrenched his hands, and I felt like, this is going to sound a little egotistical, but I felt like God was in the room. And then I thought about the dog on the Wizard of Oz pulling back the curtain, and that's what it felt like. It was the strangest feeling, and then he hurried out of the room like he didn't really want to discuss it. He said, "Oh, I know who they are, and then I got to take my dog to the vet." So when he said that, I thought of the dog, Wizard of Oz, pulling the curtain by government on this department. The fake guy up on the screen, and it's like I've been exposed, so to speak. Islam.
You know what? May I offer a different perspective that is coming by way of the spirit to me about that comment of he has to take his dog to the vet? May I offer a perspective on that?
Go ahead, Islam. Go ahead.
Islam. So what I'm hearing the Spirit say about that is that they know that we are supposed to take care of them because they're our subjects. And what he's really trying to say, just from what I can see in the spirit realm, is if I can take care, if I can take care of my dog, you all can take care of us. We're your subjects. You're supposed to take care of us. Because they know who
that's
they
not
are.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I mean, it's a different perspective. It may not resonate with everyone, but we have dominion over all of our creation. And it is our job, actually. It's our responsibility to take care of our
Well, for me, it was very empowering because I'm going to be hitting them up with a few things. So I'm glad he knows.
Yeah. They're not hiding the fact that they know anymore just because we've said it so many times on the public record. And the way you say that on the public record is by proclaiming statehood and leaning all the corporations and all of that, and removing that false covering. And when the false covering is removed, then the bibliotelio text calls that revelation. So then they start speaking the truth. I like that too, that the truth is no longer not in their mouths, because it was not in their mouths for a while. And now it is. And some, you know, when we first started doing this work, some were saying, I'll be so glad when that time comes, because our prophet said that when they're facing that, they'll, you know, they'll start telling the truth. And death might mean commercial. It means commercial death. And that has everything to do with capitalism. Because that's what commerce and all of that is about. Is that if you lie in commerce, the consequences of lying in commerce is death. And that's how we ended up, or not ended up, but that's what we just previously experienced, just coming out of. Commercial death, the Moors were not trading earthwide because we had been capitalized by a foreign entity that is not, let me say that they capitalized the instruments that we were using, because you can't capitalize the air. We capitalize all of our instruments. They don't do it. But that's what we just came out of. The United States Corporation Company was capitalizing the instruments. Their instruments that they created, and passed them off as ours, and we started claiming them. That's like somebody switching your conveyance and giving you a conveyance that looks like yours with no engine. It looks just like yours, but it has no engine. And saying, no, that's yours. And then they say, oh, you owe a payment on that. And it's the same payment that you were paying with, you know, with the one that you actually love and were using. Capitalism, the key. That's the key. That's one of the keys. And that's actually the foundational key to all of the of everything else. What we did not know, but what we didn't remember about capitalism is that whenever we went anywhere, capitalism was in play. Whenever we took our children to those corporate schools, they would capitalize the children and create bonds and accounts and send it to the Federal Reserve, the corporate fake Federal Reserve. They would send those bonds and get paid in fiat. And then when we turned around and took our children to the church, the same thing happened all over again, and the church did the same thing. They got a 501c3 discount and didn't have to pay taxes, and everybody whose name was on that list paid, because it was named when we were asleep. Then we would turn around and take our children to some amusement park or some place that we thought we were having some fun, and they would capitalize the resource. So we made everybody wealthy. Everybody wealthy by allowing them to capitalize every time we use that signature. Every time we use that signature, they was like, yep, we got another one. And then on the way home from the amusement park and the church and the school, the policy enforcers pull you over and do some capitalization too. And then tell their corp that they created and that they capitalized, that their corp has to be in a corporate private court, and the public would claim the private of the United States Corporation Company. And when the public claims that private entity, they start telling that private entity what to do, and it's like a voodoo doll. You start dancing to the tune of the court if you claim that court and don't claim your own. And that's what a state is, and that's who the state is. The Empire State of Morocco is, we've claimed our own capitalism. We've created our own instruments that we use, and those instruments on paper, they look very similar to the court's ones. Capital letter here or all caps, however we want to do it. But it starts with the public. When your documents and everything start with the public, it's the living public, not the dead public, which means in all lowercase letters and red ink of all things. Then no privateer can come and take your sovereign-born appellation as the people and capitalize it and then start telling you what to do. Because you're the fiduciary of those instruments that you created in your own state. I cannot emphasize that enough, Morris. That is a very strong key because it covers any place that you go. That means no matter what school you take them to, the United States Corporation Company cannot call them stateless and say, we got to take that from you because that's stateless. Nope, you have a state. You have an estate. And same thing, same fiduciary documents, same statehood documents, same nationality documents. You put them on the public record and you go to church or wherever you go, because some are still going to churches. Hey, can't tell sovereigns what to do. You're going to the airport. There are policy enforcers in your territory. Once they know that you're not a part of that thing that they were pushing on people, because they said, no, you can't be stateless. You got to be either under this corporate state, which is still stateless, or you got to declare your own statehood. And when you declare your living statehood, we'll leave you alone. So with that being said, that's all of we wanted to put forth today in terms of because where we're going, statehood and all of that is front and center. Us together as the state, and as it's stated in Black's Law, 4th edition, just like we said last time we voted, it does not take millions, even though we probably have at least a million, just because we don't see everybody or know everybody, but we sure can feel the spirit. And we know that it's all around the earth. And so it does not take that on these calls. Right now, the number that is registering on here says 15. 15 sovereigns. That's enough. That's enough for what we're doing. Because we're the state, and we know it. And when I say we're talking all Moors. That's not an ego statement. That's a statement. That's a state statement. Not because the state is all of us together. It's all of us together. So, if there's nothing further, are there any other questions, comments, etc.? Okay. With that being said, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Grand rising.
Islam. Peace and love.
Sexy and more.